Hello and welcome wherever you are on planet Earth to the grandest world championship of them all. It's the Chinese Grand Prix 2019 and a celebration of 1,000 world championship races, 69 seasons, 33 different world champions. This is F1000 with millions of memories. And this is where we race today. Shanghai, ladies and gentlemen, 56 laps to come over a 3.38-mile circuit. The grandstands are packed. The anticipation is high. You take your lap time at full throttle here for 59%. It's 72% distance at full throttle, and down that long back straight, speeds at round about 200 miles an hour. It's a track where there can be plenty of overtaking. It holds the record for the most overtakes in a dry race. Danny Kvyat managed to overtake two Ferraris in 2016. Vettel and Raikkonen escaping just, but with a lot of damage. At turn 6, 2017, it's Sebastian Vettel up against Daniel Ricciardo, two former teammates getting way too close before Sebastian Vettel scoots through on the inside. And down at 14, Sebastian Vettel looking in his mirrors last year as Max Verstappen came steaming in and hitting the back of that Ferrari and ending up with a post-race penalty as well. What action will we see in this afternoon's Chinese Grand Prix? We've got the soft, the medium and the hard once again. It is 1.1 seconds or so slower per lap on the medium tyre than the soft tyre. The top four all start on that yellow stripe medium tyre. We're going to get a mix of strategies and hopefully overtaking to come with it. Here's the starting grid then. Valtteri Bottas beats Lewis Hamilton after a 7-race losing streak in qualifying for his 7th career pole. Sebastian Vettel ahead of Charles Leclerc, and the Ferrari separated by 17 milliseconds in qualifying. Two Red Bulls on row 3, Max Verstappen against Pierre Gasly. Verstappen starts 5th for the 2nd year running. Two Renaults in Q3 for the first time this year. Daniel Ricciardo ahead of his teammate Nico Hülkenberg, and it's Kevin Magnussen against his teammate Romain Grosjean on row number 5. Behind them, and with a free choice of tyres to start the race, Danny Kvyat in the Toro Rosso, Sergio Perez in the Racing Point. Kimi Raikkonen starts 13th. He was on the front row last year. Carlos Sainz for company today. It's Lando Norris, Sainz's teammate, who starts 15th. Lance Stroll out in Q1, 7 races in a row alongside him. The two Williams not on the back row today. George Russell, though, still ahead of Robert Kubica. Antonio Giovinazzi gets a penalty because he didn't take part in qualifying, and Alexander Albon will start from the pit lane. It is F1000, Martin Brundle. Let's have a race to celebrate. Will we get it?
I think we will. It's looking very close. Mercedes and Ferrari nervously looking at each other. Red Bull think they've got a chance to hang on to that battle. Top 5 on the grid start on the yellow marked medium tyres. The next 5 on the red marked soft tyres. That's what they're committed to after getting through Q2, qualifying 2 yesterday. So we're going to see different strategies. Expect those on the soft tyres, the red marked tyres, get a little bit of an edge on the start, maybe have a better warm-up on the first lap, and possibly challenging some of the top 5. But I think that Mercedes, they dominate the front row for the 59th time in Mercedes history, know that they'll need to keep a close eye in the mirrors for those Ferraris, especially down the back straight, where they can get the DRS, the rear wing open. And the Ferraris, we know, have got a good amount of straight line speed. So we can see some action down into that turn 14 hairpin. This track really works well for Formula One cars. They've got the right speed and grip and they bring this track alive.
And it destroys tyres as well, so you're slipping and sliding around, as Daniel Ricciardo is right at the start here, at the end of each and every stint. One stopper, say the teams, is what they'd like to do. Whether they can get away with it or not, we wait to see. Valtteri Bottas starts on pole then. 4 of the last 5 winners here at the Chinese Grand Prix have started on pole, but not Daniel Ricciardo last year. He started 6th, and I wonder, is pole an advantage today or not, because pole hasn't won in 2019 yet either.
That's an interesting stat, isn't it? And we know that Valtteri Bottas, he's gone around.
So that's Max Verstappen.
Now he's trying to warm the tyres up. You've got an amazing tyre warmer underneath your right foot. Now, as long as he doesn't drop to the back of the field, he can make his way back through. I'd imagine he got away quite quickly, but yeah, you've got to warm your tyres up. You've got your brake pedal that'll warm the fronts up, and he's back in position, isn't he? But underneath your right foot's 1,000 horsepower.
And there is Robert Kubica in the Williams, who might just have done, Martin, something very, very similar to what happened to Max Verstappen, and spun the car around trying to warm his tyres up. Let's have a look.
So what this is telling us is those medium compound tyres are just not biting into the tarmac. We've got track temperature of 29 degrees, air temperature 19. We know they're quite difficult to get up and running, to get the surface really melted, so that with no tread on the tyre, no grooves in the tyres, of course. That's only to clear water on your road tyres. It's all about the rubber biting into the tarmac, and the yellow mark mediums don't look as if they're ready to go racing.
And of course, it's significantly colder than it has been throughout the weekend so far. We had bright sunshine yesterday, weather akin to the first ever World Championship race at Silverstone back in 1950. But today, it's grey, it's cloudy, it's overcast. There's a 40% chance of rain as well.
It's back what I was saying then. Look out for Gasly, the first of the runners in the Red Bull, with the red mark soft tyres on. He might have a lot of extra grip in the first few corners.
So we've had 107 different winners over the years in the Formula One World Championship. The man on pole today, Valtteri Bottas, the latest of those 107 different winners. Well, we add to that tally this afternoon 2 Mercedes that have downforce and speed through the corners ahead of 2 Ferraris who have lightning speed down the straights.
Charles Leclerc there on our left, the right-hand side of the grid, turned at about 10 or 20 degrees. He's very determined. There he is. He's going left when he gets underway. He's already made that decision.
Charles Leclerc didn't get a great start in Bahrain, made up for it. Valtteri Bottas has had 2 excellent starts in the opening 2 races of this season. Lewis Hamilton has lost places on the opening lap in both of the races we've had in 2019. Who is going to head into turn 1 in the lead? It is F1000, and it's lights out. And away we go. Bottas ahead of Hamilton, who got away well. Hamilton scoots past Bottas on the inside. Vettel challenging on the outside. Charles Leclerc goes on the inside of Vettel. Hamilton leads Bottas, leads Leclerc, leads Vettel, leads Verstappen. And round the outside of Pierre Gasly comes Daniel Ricciardo in the Renault. But what a great start for Lewis Hamilton. For the first time this season, he's beaten his teammate off the line.
Well, it's a real Noah's Ark grid, wasn't it? 2 by 2 with the teams all the way through the top 10. And they've somehow managed to not connect with each other as they head down into turn 6. Great driving.
Sergio Perez, very late on the brakes, gets ahead of Nico Hülkenberg in the Renault, and Kvyat's got into Norris, and they're out of the race, and Sainz has picked up damage as well. Lando Norris was hit by Danny Kvyat in the Toro Rosso. He's going to have to try and limp back to the pits if he can, as Daniel Ricciardo, under pressure from Sergio Perez, fends off the racing point. Hamilton continues out of the lead from Valtteri Bottas and Charles Leclerc. Then comes Sebastian Vettel and Max Verstappen, Pierre Gasly, Ricardo Perez. Then comes Hülkenberg and Magnussen ahead of Grosjean, ahead of Kimi Räikkönen in the Alpha. This is what happened with Danny Kvyat.
So I think Kvyat connected with both McLarens. He got some oversteer, turned into the slide, hit the first McLaren, and that sent him into the second one. Kvyat getting out of shape and causing that incident.
2016, the torpedo was launched, and it's been launched again as we've now got a virtual safety car because of debris on the track, just as Romain Grosjean was lining up a move on his teammate Kevin Magnussen. The virtual safety car is deployed by race control so the marshals can pick up the debris on the track, and as you can see, drivers must decrease their speed by 40%, no overtaking. So it was a clean start, but then it all got a little bit chaotic from turn 6 onwards, and we can see Danny Kvyat there. Yes, he did, Martin. Connected with Sainz and then torpedoed, let's use the word, into Lando Norris.
He skittled the pair of them, didn't he? Look, watch the oversteer. Yeah. Oh, it was clumsy, I'm afraid, from Daniel. I think he's got front suspension damage as well.
And it was going to be a day of pain for the McLaren team. They didn't really fancy their chances too much, but Lando Norris is thinking there, what has just hit me?
Minding his own business. And he was close to going over there.
Both McLarens have been out on lap 1 once in their team's history. USA 2006, if you remember that. Ted, you're down in the pit lane.
Yeah, and it's taking forever to get Carlos Sainz's nose off. So I know we're under virtual safety car, but this is all time lost.
Not anymore, Ted. It's just gone green.
Okay, and yeah, so Kvyat in somewhat of a marmalade sandwich there between the two orange McLarens. Kvyat, it's not appearing in the pits yet. Lando Norris has been queuing behind Sainz and is now just getting his new nose.
And what they needed, of course, was the full safety car so they could join the back of the queue, having made a pit stop. So double trouble then, to say the least, for the McLaren team.
Out in front, Lewis Hamilton has a sizable advantage over his teammate Valtteri Bottas. It's Mercedes 1 and 2, Ferrari 3 and 4, Red Bull 5 and 6 with Verstappen ahead of Gasly. We're down the back straight now, and Sergio Perez is looking in his mirrors because he's got Nico Hülkenberg right behind him. How late can Hülkenberg go on the brakes? Grosjean isn't too far away either. Perez locks up a touch. Kimi Räikkönen's getting interested with Kevin Magnussen. Lance Stroll waiting to pick off some pieces as well into that hairpin.
Yes, and that's the second big lockup we've seen from Perez in the Racing Point. But Hamilton then just outside of, just a little bit ahead of Bottas in terms of the DRS zone when that becomes active. Not yet, though.
Race control saying that DRS is now enabled. Might make overtaking a little easier down that back straight.
Copy, Lewis. Everything looks okay at the moment. Just give us some more info when you can.
Keep an eye on my left front.
Okay, copy. Everything looks okay at the moment.
Presumably some damage from something on the track from that turn 6 incident. Lewis is concerned he's run over something, but he's fastest man through the first sector, but he was somewhat slower than Bottas on that previous lap once they got up and running.
And going along very nicely indeed. Max Verstappen in 5th place just put in a lap that was well, a comfortable half a second quicker than Valtteri Bottas and about a second and a half quicker than Lewis Hamilton.
Looking down the field, Crofty, look, they're doing 44s back there. I think that was affected by when the virtual safety car was switched off, I think. We have to ignore that last lap time, and we'll see now it settles down.
Alex Albon does officially have the fastest lap at the moment. I doubt he will keep it for the rest of this race. If he does, though, and he's in the top 10, he will get an extra point for it. Sebastian Vettel behind Charles Leclerc, and still behind Charles Leclerc at the end of that straight, as the stewards now looking at that incident between Kvyat, Sainz and Norris, as Kevin Magnussen and Kimi Räikkönen trying to go wheel to wheel.
Feedback for you. We do have damage to the floor area of the car. We do have damage. So head down now, focus, still a long race ahead.
Might be an afternoon of pain, but you are still in it as Hamilton crosses the line now with the fastest lap of 1:38.1. He's 1.5 seconds clear of his teammate Valtteri Bottas. We're looking at Lance Stroll behind Kevin Magnussen. The Haas seems to not have the race pace for the second race running here. Magnussen dropping back down the field. He's currently 12th.
And are we going to hear Vettel on the radio saying, I'm faster than him, I need to come through, as we had in reverse in Bahrain?
And are Ferrari going to say, just give it 2 laps? And is Vettel going to ignore it and overtake his teammate after just 1 lap, as we had in Bahrain?
If he gets close to him in turn 13, although because they're trying to eke their tyres out and get it into a one-stop strategy, and Anthony Davidson is down at race control. What have you seen, Ant?
Yeah, basically I'd just call it as a racing incident, guys, because he just gets sandwiched between the two of them. Norris is off the track, and as he rejoins the circuit, Sainz has just found himself in that pinch zone, and yeah, there's really nothing that any of them could have done, and he's just, you know, 3 into 1 doesn't really go.
Thanks ever so much, Ants. We're on to the back straight then. Hamilton clear of Bottas and a long way clear. He can't use DRS. Can the Finn, who started on pole? Sebastian Vettel can use DRS though, but he's got his teammate Charles Leclerc ahead of him, and both Ferraris are pretty rapid as Vettel is finding out, and probably to his disappointment as well. He closes up by the time they get on the brakes, but not enough to make a move.
Didn't close as fast as I thought it might, so maybe the DRS with a bit of a crosswind component rather than a headwind down that straight today is not going to be quite as powerful.
So Hamilton got the better of the getaways, and by the time they get into turn one, he's already ahead of Bottas, who takes a wider route round the outside. Then Leclerc scoots down the inside of Sebastian Vettel, while Verstappen clear of Gasly, who's got to try and hold off Daniel Ricciardo.
And Perez going around the outside of turn 2, started 12th, up to P8, and this is the pole sitter, and he did not get the best start. Bit of wheel spin there, and we'll see Hamilton flash up the inside. Really a complete mirror image, but in reverse, of the Melbourne Grand Prix, wasn't it?
Absolutely. Sergio Perez, by the way, gained 16 places on the opening lap of the final 11 races last season, and he gained 4 places in Bahrain.
Lot of wheel spin for Vettel, but he's still caught to Bottas, so really not one of Bottas's finest starts. And as Vettel had to get out of the throttle, Leclerc was up the inside.
Yeah, he probably got too good a start. It cost him a place in the end, perversely. Now we carry on a little bit to see the two Hasses running side by side, and then Danny Kvyat into Sainz, into Norris. Ouch. The teenager getting a little bit of a sore back from that, I would imagine.
Yeah, it was just that bit of oversteer Kvyat got on initial throttle application that walked his car across the track.
And this is what it looked like on board Lando Norris's McLaren. And he probably just lifted off the sofa in unison with the McLaren doing a little bunny hop there. Didn't look very good at all for Lando Norris. The Chinese Grand Prix for Sky Q customers, you can press the red button to watch it live in Ultra HD and enjoy up to 4 times the detail of HD. Kevin Magnussen's looking in his mirrors at the moment, fending off Lance Stroll, as down the inside goes Alex Albon on Antonio Giovinazzi and takes 15th place as a result.
Having started from the pit lane, of course, after the accident yesterday where he needed a change of chassis. The regulations then dictate you have to start from the pit lane. I'm entirely sure that makes a lot of sense, frankly. But looking at the VMAXs, the top speeds of the two Ferraris, Leclerc was 302 kilometers per hour, and Sebastian Vettel, with his DRS open, was 325, a differential delta, as we call it, of 23 kilometers per hour. So Vettel doing just a couple of 100 miles an hour down there. So in terms of speed, it's pretty high, isn't it?
Danny Kvyat with speed and late on the brakes as well, trying to get past Lance Stroll. He's not quite done it. He's had to take the long way round, and he's lost out once again. Kvyat's a man on a mission today, and it's a mission that is not exactly proceeding with much caution either. Stroll in 13th place, Kvyat still in 14th, and he'll be back for another go at that in a moment.
Yeah,
and he's got a drive-through penalty as well, Martin.
Yeah.
For causing a collision. Danny Kvyat into Sainz, into Norris, has been penalised by the stewards, and he tried to get the long way around the outside and get a place on Lance Stroll. Didn't happen. Might have lost a bit of bodywork in the process, as well as Leclerc locks up going into the hairpin, but he's far enough ahead of Sebastian Vettel to hold on to that 4th place.
Mercedes are getting away. I wonder if Ferrari are going to call team orders here. And I can't help but feel that Vettel's got a slightly faster Ferrari at this point. And look at that, Verstappen is only a couple of seconds, just over a couple of seconds behind as well. So just strikes me that Vettel's got a slightly better race car at this stage of the Grand Prix.
Not heard anything team radio-wise at the moment. Ted's keeping an eye on some of the team radios as well. Maybe he's heard a bit of chatter, but we might get the telltale, guys, I'm quicker, let me through. If Sebastian Vettel does feel he's been held up somewhat by his teammate. But you're right, Martin, look, the Mercedes out of our picture at the moment. Valtteri Bottas about 2.5 seconds clear, just under 2.5 seconds clear of Charles Leclerc. Let's head down to Ted.
Yeah, no radio messages on that front yet. The gap's still 0.8 of a second, as you can see, between Leclerc and Vettel. But yeah, after getting not as good a start, Sebastian Vettel eager to get after the Mercedes. But what an advantage for Lewis Hamilton, because of course, if the Ferraris do get near, he's now got Bottas as a rear gunner to protect against the Ferraris if they can get an advantage on the straight. So, wow, it just falls into Lewis's hands, doesn't it? Could it be a 6th win round here?
And all the time hurting the tyres, the front tyres of Vettel. When we were on board there, as Ted was giving that explanation, we could see the front of his Ferrari sliding across the track. That's what really damages the tyres, is sort of lateral sliding. And once again, then with DRS, he's back in contention by the hairpin.
I dare say if that wasn't a Ferrari ahead of Sebastian Vettel, he'd have got a couple of these overtakes done, Martin, down that straight. The trouble is he's got the next fastest car to himself in a straight line as the car that is ahead of him at the moment, and that 0.8 of a second gap is maintained. It's a 2.5 second gap, Hamilton to Bottas, to 2.5 second gap, Bottas to Leclerc, and Max Verstappen keeping within what they call the undercut range behind Sebastian Vettel. If he wanted to trigger some early pit stops, he could make life quite difficult for the German in the Ferrari.
In fact, Verstappen's taken a 10th out of the Ferrari, so 8 seconds covers the top 5 at the moment. And then Gasly in some fresh air of his own ahead of the former Red Bull driver Daniel Ricciardo, having, it must be said, a much better weekend for Renault.
Trundling at 80 kilometres an hour down the pit lane and past our commentary box comes Antonio Giovinazzi for his first stop in the Alfa Romeo. It's the medium compound tyre going on for him. He was a little slow to get away, 4.9 seconds the stationary time. Danny Kvyat is also into the pit lane, but that's for his drive-through penalty for causing a collision. So he's come into the pit lane, but he's not changed tyres. Not allowed to do that when you've got a drive-through penalty. You can't try and kill 2 birds with 1 stone, as it were. You have to come in again if you need to.
Look at all the debris already, look, on the pit straight, the discarded, the marbles, as they're known as. That's obviously, as they start getting towards top speed, that's where they get flicked off, as they get shoved to the side of the tyre and then flicked off at high speed. And that indicates to me a lot of wear rate.
And I wonder if that is temperature related as well. And the track temperature today, around about 6 or 7 degrees lower than we had in qualifying, and a little bit lower than we had in practice on Friday as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost, here we are, you know, on lap 9, and there's like a goat track, isn't there, down the back straight already?
There is Sergio Perez, one of the bigger gainers at the start of this race. He started 12th on the grid up to 8th place. He gained 4 places in Bahrain. He's gained 4 places here and into the points as well. Just have a little look once again at this Alfa Romeo pit stop.
Left front was a bit reluctant to leave the party, basically.
See an indication here. Watch the front left. Yeah, it was the wheel gun wasn't taking everything out in the way that it should. The mechanics quickly getting him out after that. So Hamilton stretching his lead a little bit out in front. Bottas stretching his advantage over Leclerc. Still Sebastian Vettel right on the tail of Charles Leclerc, and still Max Verstappen within touching distance as well.
How fast can you go? Need to push now. Yeah, trying to get closer.
Trying to get closer, but not getting close enough, and getting the hurry up from his team, Sebastian Vettel, who even with DRS still seems quite a long way back into the hairpin at turn 14, Martin.
Yeah, it wouldn't look that far back if he snatched a front brake and creamed into the gearbox of his teammate. But yeah, your sense is getting a bit edgy. Vettel now 6.5 seconds off the lead. You know, we've heard so much about the pace of Ferrari this year and how fast they are, but you know, it's Mercedes leading both championships, and Mercedes 1-2 in the race as well. Ted.
Right, the midfield battle has been triggered by Romain Grosjean. The Haas drivers kind of came together a little bit on the first lap. So Romain Grosjean is pitted, and let's see if that triggers everybody else. Lance Stroll just ahead of him in the racing point. Now Kevin Magnussen's going to come in as well in the second Haas. Just want to correct myself. I said that it fell into Lewis Hamilton's hands with the start. Actually, Crofty, he has been working so hard on his starts this year. Starts were so strong of his last year. And
Ted, 2 seconds.
Need to go faster, otherwise we'll let Sebastian pass, need to go.
Yeah, but we are both. Let's see 10 laps, but okay.
Leclerc's been told to get a move on by the team 10.
Yep, no, just to finich that. So, yeah, Hamilton's been working hard on his starts and it's paid off.
Thank you very much indeed.
I think that's inevitable from Ferrari. I think we sort of headlined it a little bit, didn't we?
Yep.
We flagged it up, but it's that's the right thing to do at the moment. Unless Leclerc's got some speed in his pocket, maybe he's protecting his tyres and thinks he's happy to have his teammate tucked up behind him right now.
It's exactly what they did in Bahrain in reverse. If
Yeah.
you catch my drift on that one, Ferrari basically telling the drivers that we'll sort it out, we'll keep it fair in that respect.
Because it's keeping...
Let Sebastian by, let Sebastian by.
But I'm pulling now, I'm pulling away.
He's not. That message might be a little old. He's letting Sebastian Vettel past. Vettel moves up into third place. Charles Leclerc obeys team orders, and Sebastian Vettel is now released to get after Valtteri Bottas and try and reduce the deficit that has grown to about 3 seconds, 3.5 seconds in the opening 10 laps of this race.
Now Seb's got to get on with it and prove that the Ferrari team made the right call, but as you can tell from what I was saying, I believe that's the right call.
And look how Sebastian Vettel is pulling away bit by bit by bit. It's worth pointing out that behind them, Max Verstappen over 7 seconds ahead of Pierre Gasly after 10 laps. They're on different tyre compounds, of course. This is Kimi Räikkönen on Nico Hülkenberg into the hairpin. Räikkönen, 5 times he started on the front row, but never on pole here in China. Started 13th today, and he is up into 9th place. Nice move from him.
And his medium tyres are really working nicely. But of course, Leclerc will now get the DRS down the back straight. Let's see how that puts him. But he's the one struggling with the dirty air. But Vettel's got to get after the Mercedes. It's too easy for them up front at the moment. They can call the shots. They can control the pace, control their tyre usage. Ferrari have got to put Mercedes under pressure.
What, of course, it's done by Leclerc slowing down. It's, a lock up there from Sebastian Vettel into the hairpin. It's brought Max Verstappen that much closer to a Ferrari ahead of him. Vettel obviously losing pace to let his teammate go past, and Verstappen is a lot closer to Leclerc than he was to Sebastian Vettel.
Yeah, Leclerc will want to make a point now, won't he? He want to make a point. He's got DRS down the pit straight of, look, he started to say, but we are both. And I think it would have been, we are both tyre saving.
Yeah.
So no wonder he's behind me. Although Vettel wasn't saving his tyres a whole lot into the hairpin, was he? As they were being pushed down. Now that was a car just going in the pits.
Yeah,
wasn't
it was. I'll tell you exactly who it is. It's the Renault of Nico Hülkenberg coming into the pits. As we watched his teammate Daniel Ricciardo still ahead of Sergio Perez. So that early pit stop by Haas maybe triggering a few others to come in a little earlier as well. And here's significance, the hard compound tyre going on for Nico Hülkenberg. So Renault keeping their options open a little bit, maybe wanting to go to the end of the race on this set of tyres. Is he out ahead of Romain Grosjean? No, he's not. So Grosjean now ahead of Nico Hülkenberg. That's the undercut there, where you pit ahead of the car in front, or the car that you're racing in front, and hope that a lap on a fresh set of tyres gives you an advantage, so that by the time your opponent goes into the pits to try and do something about it, he's well behind you. They're both on the hard compound tyre. Günther Steiner, you triggered the early pit stop, seems to have worked at this stage.
Yes, at this stage. Now we need to keep in front, which will be easy, obviously, but you know, it worked up to now.
Are you suffering on your tyres a little bit, though? Kevin Magnussen's dropping back once again.
I wouldn't say he's dropping back. I think this tyre is working better than the soft for us, the C4. This is better, the harder one, so let's see what it does over the distance.
It's dropped you in behind Kvyat and Kubica, though, hasn't it? You really need to try and clear those two for the race strategy to work better.
Agree, Martin.
Yeah. What can you do?
We just can try to attack them, you know, on top speed. We are not the best ones, so let's hope we can get near them somewhere and get by them. And they will stop in about, I guess, 10-15 laps, or at least Kvyat. So let's see.
Thanks ever so much, Günther. Back with you in a while.
This is the beginning of a story that's going to develop through the year.
Charles Leclerc has just basically told his team he's not very happy with what they've done, and his race engineer, Xavier Marcos Padros, is saying, look, stay focused, we've got a job to do here. And Leclerc is basically throwing a bit of a strop, Martin, because he thinks his race has been compromised just to keep his teammate happy.
Yeah, and to be fair, Vettel hasn't exactly disappeared down the road, although because he's towing Leclerc along with the DRS drag reduction system. But it's Hamilton in a class of 1 out front at the moment, the only man anywhere near a 1:38, and another massive lock-up then from Vettel. Those tyres will look like a 50p piece soon.
Well, this will just add to Charles Leclerc's frustrations the more he sees his teammates doing that. Out in front, the man who's won 5 times, more than anyone else here in Shanghai, is now over 4 seconds clear of Valtteri Bottas. That's the lock-up by Sebastian Vettel.
And of course the key thing of being the Ferrari in front is he'll get first call on the pit stops. They're so close together they can't double stack them. Vettel will get first call to come in and get the undercut as well, so Leclerc knows it's a bit of a double-edged sword there for him. It'll hurt him in 2 ways.
So Vettel and Leclerc, and you can see here where Leclerc is losing out to Vettel. Guess what? It's through the middle sector, through the twisty fast corner bits, Martin, where it's difficult to follow because you lose downforce, the car in front, and then when he gets a bit of DRS assistance, it keeps him very much in touching distance of his teammate.
Yeah, I mean, Vettel's been given the fresh air, and he's been clumsy with it, hasn't he? He's not used it. He's been giving the advantage and made... Well, we've seen at least 2 fairly big errors now, haven't we? And all the time, Verstappen watches on.
So just looking at Pirelli's predictions, the hard compound tyre, by the way, could last for about 40 laps. So it's touch and go, and they could probably do with a safety car for the likes of Romain Grosjean and Nico Hülkenberg to go to the end of the race. They might be suffering a bit come the last 3 or 4 laps.
Why isn't Leclerc's DRS open there? Bit of a long shot, maybe it was, but I couldn't see it open down the back straight. Is he within the second he is? Wow, ooh, touch and go, isn't it?
It might be.
It wasn't open, so maybe he's just 1.0 something or other when he went into turn 12 where the detection point is.
Yeah, which comes obviously at the end of that middle sector where he's that's where he's losing pace, of course, behind his teammate.
But he's just outside the 1 second zone.
Which might give Sebastian Vettel a bit of breathing space. That's Pierre Gasly, who's got plenty of room to breathe because he's all on his own. He's about 8.7 seconds behind his teammate and 8 seconds ahead of the man whose seat he took, Daniel Ricciardo, when Ricciardo left.
I'm losing quite a lot of time. I don't know whether you want to know or not, but just to let you know.
I don't know if you want to know or not, but Vettel can't slow the car down. He can't get the front slowed down enough, and keeps locking up the front.
This is absolutely brilliant. This is the 21-year-old, Charles Leclerc in his 24th race, basically telling his Ferrari team that the 31-year-old in his 222nd race, Sebastian Vettel, shouldn't be ahead of him at the moment.
Well, Vettel hasn't used it, has he? No. He hasn't. It looked like he got the speed, and now he's got in front. He just keeps locking his brakes.
We are discussing that.
But the trouble is, Martin, if they want to switch the Ferraris round again, Verstappen is that much closer, and they're going to lose out in the pit stops if Verstappen triggers that undercut. So Ferrari have now got themselves into a bit of a situation.
Well, especially if they start laying each other past on the pit straight. You need to do it, you just ease somebody alongside you down the back straight, so you both lose as little time as possible.
Yeah, Ferrari in a world of pain at the moment, and it's a world of pain that's entirely their own.
Well, they've been playing snakes and ladders a bit with their 2 drivers, but they're only finding snakes at the moment.
Yeah, too right. Out in front, Hamilton and Bottas just going along very nicely indeed, out of any threat really of undercuts from the 2 Ferraris behind them.
I mean, this is basically telling us whatever Ferrari do, they don't have an answer for Mercedes' pace.
Mercedes was saying on Thursday, don't worry, Ferrari might have the speed down the straights, but there are 16 corners here, and if we're losing out on the straights, we'll get him in the corners, and we'll make sure we're far enough ahead at the corners so they can't get past us.
There'll be a second phase to this race once they've stopped. We'll see who's got the better car on the hard tyre to get it to the end of the Grand Prix, because right now Ferrari are racing Red Bull. They're not racing Mercedes. Ted?
Just correct me if I'm wrong, Martin. Wouldn't there be an easy way to solve this Ferrari problem?
Push more, if you can.
Just let them race.
Well,
Don't order one past the other. Let them race. If they can overtake, then overtake. Good luck to them. Just let them race. That would solve all this, wouldn't it? I know why they're doing it.
I've got many stats, Ted, for F1000, but I haven't got the amount of races in the past that Ferrari have let their drivers race in.
Novel idea.
But
let them race.
I wouldn't imagine it's 1,000,
Anyway,
shall we say.
just a quick one on Pierre Gasly, whose tyres are starting to go off. Just to remind you, there are different tyres on the 2 Red Bulls. Verstappen, as you've seen, with the yellow tyres on, they can go longer into the race. Gasly with the red tyres on, and his pace is starting to drop off as that front left starts to wear.
Talking of stats, Martin Brundle, we've been focusing on the Ferraris for quite some time. Out in front, Lewis Hamilton has the luxury of a clear track ahead of him and pretty much a clear track behind him. At the end of lap 15, he became the second man in the history of the Formula One World Championship to have led 4,000 laps in his career. Michael Schumacher, obviously, the first man to do that. Hamilton has now joined him in clearing 4,000 laps led in his career.
No wonder he feels comfortable out front, is it? That's an outstanding performance and an extraordinary statistic.
Hamilton, the man who has, in terms of percentages, won a decent amount during his time, of course. 32% of his races, 74 wins, 231 races before today.
Yeah, I think that's 4th in the all-time list, isn't it, of average wins. But it was Leclerc locking his brakes up that time. This tells me that the Ferrari is really punishing its front tyres. This is a front tyre limited circuit that really pushes you, leans on your front. Those long corners hurt the front tyres a lot, and it seems to me that Ferrari are punishing their front tyres a good bit more than Mercedes.
So we've seen Hülkenberg come in down at Renault, and we're seeing Hülkenberg come in again. This is not a scheduled pit stop for Nico Hülkenberg, whose race ended with an ICE problem, the dismantled ICE in Bahrain, and what looks there, Martin, like another mechanical failure for Nico Hülkenberg.
We were retiring the car.
I hope it's not that kinetic motor again, because that's very much the Achilles heel of...
Well, it's what has cost Renault with Carlos Sainz in terms of Renault power at McLaren. It's, I think, cost Lando Norris a bit of performance at times as well, as Verstappen now comes into the pits. They are trying to trigger something. Look, Norris has got maybe a bit of damage there on his car. That front wing scraping along the ground a bit too much.
Hard tyres then, so now they're going to put Ferrari under pressure with that, and they haven't cleared Gasly yet in the other Red Bull in terms of a pit stop window in the Ferrari. So out comes Verstappen, just gets in front of Kimi Raikkonen.
That was touch and go as well. 3 seconds he was stationary for. I would imagine that they were looking to get him out a bit clearer of Kimi Raikkonen and maybe ahead of Sergio Perez in the racing point as well. But it's the hard compound tyre that goes on for Max Verstappen, and what will this do, I wonder, to Ferrari? Charles Leclerc ahead of him. I'm looking into that Ferrari garage, no sign of any movement as yet.
But they've got to bring one of the Ferraris in to cover that, surely. Which one are they going to bring in first? Leclerc's the one most at risk from the undercut.
Now this, I said about Lando Norris, has he got a bit of damage? Well, we know he's got a bit of floor damage, but look how that front wing is scraping along the ground, getting very hot and throwing out a lot of sparks as well.
Yeah, you can get the Ferrari don't appear to be coming. Yes, they're coming out now. Ferrari mechanics running out now of the garage. Which Ferrari are they going to pit first? Look at the top of the hill here, and we'll see which.
Lando Norris is pitting as well. That looks like Sebastian Vettel. It is Sebastian Vettel as Charles Leclerc goes through. Max Verstappen making his way down the back straight as I speak, and entering the hairpin as the Ferrari of Sebastian Vettel stops now. Hard compound tyre going on. And they're trying to make a one-stop strategy work as Vettel trundles along at 80 kilometres an hour down the pit lane. Max Verstappen rounds the final corner. He's making his way down the main straight now past our commentary box. Sebastian Vettel is going to stay ahead of Max Verstappen. Red Bull through the undercut. Ferrari reacted straight away. They've kept their man ahead of the Red Bull.
One of their men. I think Leclerc is under a lot of pressure with this undercut, Ted.
Yeah, I think they had to put Vettel because they already had to give up on losing the place to Leclerc with Max Verstappen. If you add it up, it's 23 seconds you need to come in, make a stop, and then get out again. I'm just going to go to McLaren and see what happened. Lando Norris came in, and I don't think he changed the tyres, but one of his rear tyres has got completely no markings on it.
Interesting.
It's very strange going on. I'll check that out.
But Lando Norris coming in there has held up Sebastian Vettel just a little bit. Norris moves out of the way for both Vettel and Verstappen. Verstappen's definitely going to get some DRS here down the back straight. There is an 83% chance at the moment of Verstappen overtaking Charles Leclerc. So this is the predicted pit stop strategy battle. It's looking very good for Verstappen getting Leclerc in the pits, but I tell you what, he really wants to try and get Sebastian Vettel down the back straight as well. It's Honda power against Ferrari power, and it's DRS assisted now for Max Verstappen, and the wing wide open at the back. Can he get anywhere close? We've seen them come together last year as Verstappen dives down the inside. He's going for it again. He locks up, gets ahead of Vettel. Vettel tries to fight it back again, and he gets pushed wide. Max Verstappen into the dirt on the inside. Verstappen can't get ahead of Sebastian Vettel. Vettel fighting for his dear life to hold on to that fifth place. Verstappen almost got him. Boy, was that close.
And Verstappen did the fastest lap of the Grand Prix through the middle of all of that as well. A 1:37.6. There it is at the top of your screen. Tremendous driving. Vettel entitled to take the racing line on the inside. Verstappen running out of space on the outside of the track. It was a lunge, but it was under control, but he couldn't quite. As he put some lock into the steering wheel, the inside tyre unloaded, and there it is, just coming back at him.
Brilliant.
Good driving from the pair of them.
Absolutely brilliant. And I was keeping everything crossed that we didn't get a repeat of last year. We didn't get a repeat of last year. They kept it clean this time around, but it was very, very close indeed. You could see that coming. The minute Vettel was stuck behind Lando Norris for part of that lap, it allowed Verstappen to keep in touch.
And Leclerc stayed out. They haven't pitted him, so they're going to go a different way with Charles Leclerc, try and run him long, I guess, and give him some fresher tyres at the end of the Grand Prix.
Always another lock-up for the Ferrari of Charles Leclerc.
We go as long as possible, thinking about the end of the race, but we keep pushing,
Copy.
So that's the trade-off, isn't it? Look, I know you're unhappy at the moment. You think you've lost out a bit here, but don't worry. Keep your head down, keep going. The strategy might come back to you towards the checkered flag.
Because they can put a set of softs on, can't
Exactly.
they, at the end of the race. So Leclerc doesn't have any new ones. Because he had to do that extra run in qualifying, of course. But he'll have a decent set of softs he can put on if they can get far enough into the Grand Prix.
Sebastian Vettel sets a new fastest lap of this race. He's a long way behind after the pit stop his teammate Charles Leclerc, and he's down in fourth place, and Max Verstappen keeping with him with the help of DRS on that lap. But how much longer will he get that, I wonder?
So Mercedes have to react to that lap time, because now, I mean, they've been out front minding their own business. Suddenly, with Vettel in the 1:36, they'll have to react, otherwise the lead they built up will disappear.
Unless, of course, they think, well, we can maybe eke this out for quite some time. No, they're going to come out. One of their drivers is going to pit here because they're making movement down to that Mercedes garage. Lewis Hamilton has got a new set of softs if they want to go medium and then soft for Hamilton. But they're going to react, and I would imagine with Valtteri Bottas first. It's not normally the guy who's in second place that gets first call on strategy, but as Hamilton disappears down the front home straight,
Box.
Valtteri Bottas does come in to the pits for his first pit stop in this race. Now Vettel and Verstappen are halfway down the back straight, and he stops now. Valtteri Bottas. Hard compound tyre going on, so matching Vettel and matching Verstappen with their change of tyre.
Yeah, they couldn't give Vettel 2 or 3 clear laps at these kind of lap times, otherwise he'll be right on them.
There is Sebastian Vettel and Max Verstappen rounding, or there are, I should say, rounding the final corner. Valtteri Bottas, lovely pit stop, by the way. 2.3 seconds he was stationary, is out in plenty of time to keep ahead of the lead Ferrari and the lead Red Bull. Charles Leclerc might be second, but he has still got to make a pit stop in this race. Bottas out behind him and a long way behind him as well, so as not to get held up too much by the car in front. And Lewis Hamilton continues on, out in front, on his way, he would hope, to a 6th victory here in Shanghai. But there's over 30 laps to go in this race yet, so don't expect anything.
Young Max Verstappen knew that was probably his best, his only chance of a run in the Ferrari. He wasn't going to waste it, was he?
He was going to be looking for a safety car.
What happens as soon if you're braking in a straight line, you're fine. As soon as you ask the front tyres to turn and keep the retardation going, slowing down and supporting the car, and you get a bit of jacking across the front, the geometry of the front axle as well, it unloads the inside tyre and it locks up.
So Lewis Hamilton, a little wide there. Good job there's no gravel trap like there once was in 2007.
Lost in the World Championship, didn't it?
It
that
did.
Very piece of track.
It certainly did. Into action go the Mercedes pit crew, who are still practicing pit stops about an hour before the start of this race this afternoon. And practice makes perfect as Hamilton gets his tyres changed, comes back out onto the track.
The shininess of the tyres this year, they've got a chrome mould now with what they call a release agent inside, as they, well, that's kind of no man's land for Leclerc to be stopping there, surely.
Well, he's been sacrificed. Vettel goes through, Verstappen goes through, Norris goes through, but he is a lap down, so he's effectively unlapping himself behind Charles Leclerc. Leclerc comes back out onto the track. He was at one stage third, had to yield to his teammate. He's now 5th in this race. Pierre Gasly, by the way, behind Kimi Raikkonen. Raikkonen hasn't stopped yet, though in this race they're trying a different strategy in the Sauber. Nico Rosberg, let's bring you in as we watch Raikkonen struggling for grip out there, and I'm not surprised on lap 23. Gasly is going to get past him. What do you make of what's been happening at Ferrari and switching drivers around and getting themselves into something of a pickle?
Yeah, I understand that they had to try something, but they treated Leclerc a bit too harshly, I found. And now that they see, okay, it doesn't actually make any difference, it's really difficult for them and really unfair on Leclerc. However, I think Leclerc will still have another chance at the end of the race now, because he's going really long on the first stint, and he'll be quick at the end of the race, so maybe we could see some action there for him.
Do you think that he went long enough, though? Could they not have kept him out a little bit longer and then maybe put him onto a set of soft tyres at the end, or is that just not possible?
No, soft was not possible. So, yeah, maybe you're right that it wasn't long enough, but the tyres are going to be a lot fresher, and at the end of the race, the people are going to struggle a lot with the front tyres. So you don't need much to make a big difference, but you're right, let's see. Maybe it's not enough. At the same time, though, let me say that we're seeing an unbelievable Lewis Hamilton again out there. What a catch-up during the weekend. Like, he was nowhere, and when it matters, bang, I'm back, guys, try and catch me if you can.
Yeah, Leclerc stopped 4 laps later than his teammate Vettel, but on the same lap as Hamilton.
Why did you stop Valtteri first? I think it's going to be tyre life dominated towards the end of the race. We're in a much better place now.
Basically saying what you were saying there, Nico, we're going to give you a better chance towards the end of this race. Nico, just for those that are watching, because you've been in that position, what is it like in the last few laps here in Shanghai? It destroys tyres at this circuit, but how as a driver does it feel when you're just trying to nurse your car amidst all the slipping and sliding in the last few laps?
Yeah, all through the race now, Lewis is going to have to be so careful with the front end, especially in high-speed corners, just minimum steering angle, also in braking to make sure he doesn't lock up, because that's all going to matter then at the end of the race, because at the end of the race you lose a lot of front-end temperature, and then they start to be really on the edge, and you can lock up very, very easily, and that would be quite damaging and quite risky.
So what Lewis is reacting there to is, why did you give my teammate an undercut? He's filling my mirrors now, and before the stops, I could barely see him. Now he's right on me. You know what? Why did you do that? And of course, as he's been pointed out, well, your tyres are a lap younger, and this is going to be a race that's about keeping your tyres intact.
So Valtteri Bottas on the last lap set a fastest lap of the race. I want to see how Hamilton now responds on this lap, because this is the one that should be. Oh no, Bottas has gone faster. Bottas has gone faster again. So you think, well, maybe it takes a couple of laps to really get these hard compound tyres warmed up nicely. That might not be the case here. Bottas could actually be going a little better on these hard compound tyres.
Yeah, sometimes it really suits your style, and you know, a harder compound is more, you can lean on it if you're pushing a little bit, the front end's a bit wild or something. You can just dial into a harder compound tyre, and at the moment you'd have to say Bottas is getting the best out of them, but he's got, is he taking too much out of them before the end of the Grand Prix?
Well, that we'll only find out come the checkered flag. For the time being, Martin, another 2/10 Valtteri Bottas has taken out of Lewis Hamilton's advantage through the first sector of this lap. And by the naked eye, looks like he is getting that much closer, maybe during the middle sector as well. 28.7, they both go through pretty much the same. He was, what, 1 millisecond Hamilton faster actually than Bottas in the end. He's not in DRS range as yet, which I'm sure will give Lewis Hamilton a bit of a sigh of relief in the lead Mercedes. But if this carries on like this, then Mercedes are going to be faced with the same issues that Ferrari were faced with about 15 laps ago.
Yeah, I suspect it'll be a different reaction. So, Leclerc ended up 13.4 seconds behind his teammate, running 4 laps longer on those used tyres, but at least he will have a chance now in the closing stages. He's still got a chance of third place, Leclerc. Bottas a 10th of a second faster again on that lap, gap down to 1.5 seconds. I suspect Lewis is just pacing himself a little bit.
And it's entering into a phase of the race, the tyre management phase, Ted Kravitz, where Valtteri Bottas admitted in Bahrain that he overmanaged his tyres.
Yeah, he's not making that mistake today, is he?
Certainly is.
Taking a lot of life out of his tyres early on in the battle against Hamilton. We'll see if that comes back to bite him later on. Alpha just getting ready for a Kimi Raikkonen stop. I think he's more or less the only one who hasn't stopped yet, isn't he, Crofty?
He is the only one except Robert Kubica. Hang on 2
Looks like
seconds.
the wind has calmed down a little bit as well, Max. Might find the cars a bit more predictable.
The wind that was gusting behind the cars and into turn 1, Ted.
So that means the car was unpredictable before, but yeah, it was some good pace from Max Verstappen. But there was a double pit stop earlier on. There is Raikkonen right in front of me, making his stop in the Alpha. Started on the medium tyres, goes to the white stripes. That's a quicker stop than Giovinazzi. Nice one, Alfa Romeo Sauber, much better. And now Toro Rosso getting ready again. But just there was a double pit stop earlier on for the Racing Point team, what you might call a double shuffle for the Pink Panthers, Crofty. But if you're that way inclined, but it was actually to protect Sergio Perez's 9th place against Grosjean, so that's good. Perez, nice one at the moment for him on course. P9 for the Pink Panthers, Racing Point.
Kevin Magnussen ahead of Kimi Raikkonen. Raikkonen came out of the pits and Magnussen just swooped past him. Raikkonen's going to try around the outside at the hairpin at turn 6, then switch back to the inside and get on the gas a little bit more cleanly. Has he got ahead of Kevin Magnussen? Yes, he has. Kimi Raikkonen back up into the points. 10th place is his at the moment, and he's chasing after the other Haas, Romain Grosjean now.
Yeah, good driving there from Kimi. Plenty of speed left in him yet, isn't there? So no investigation then between Vettel and Verstappen in that little scuffle down at the hairpin, and I think that's absolutely correct.
Yeah, I think it was noted by the stewards, so one would imagine that at Red Bull they would have got Jonathan Wheatley, the team manager, would have gone on to the FIA's F1 race director, Michael Massey, say, do you want to have a look at that one? It might be worth it.
Had him on the grass, tried to kill him.
Bit dangerous, you know. And they've said no, thank you very much. Alex Albon had a big crash in FP3 and is making his way up the field and making up for lost time in the race itself. Has just got past Antonio Giovinazzi. He's got pace, that Toro Rosso. Real shame he couldn't take part in qualifying, because it was looking like a contender for the top 10. He was coming out of the final corner where he got it all wrong and crashed quite heavily into the tyre barriers on the right-hand side of your screen now.
Yeah, World Championship point for Albon is not out of the question at the moment.
I totally agree.
Oh, look, the car's not level on the car's not level on the Jag.
That was the replay of his pit stop, so he was hampered a little bit at his pit stop there.
So there wasn't enough gap to get the right rear on.
At least they seem to have got it on in the end, and safely too. Giovinazzi's really struggling, it seems, out there. Lance Stroll is now right up behind him and looking for a way past. When did Giovinazzi pit? He pitted on lap 7. He was the first one to come in, really, and put on the medium compound tyre as a strategy choice. And 21 laps on those medium compound tyres is seeing him struggle for grip. So Stroll all over the back of the Alfa Romeo. Giovinazzi raced here before, of course, a couple of years ago. He raced the first 2 races that season for the Sauber team, as it was known then, in place of Pascal Wehrlein. but had already crashed by this stage in the race, so he's gone 24 laps longer this time round, Martin. But he's gone very, very wide there. He's clearly struggling for grip. Lance Stroll's thinking, patience, patience, young man, I'm going to get you at the end of this straight, because I'll get DRS as well. I've got a nice exit out of turn 13. By the time I get to the line, I'm almost alongside you. And then look, that little helping hand of DRS takes him past very quickly indeed. Get your braking right, and the place is yours. Lance Stroll up to 13.
Yes, the straight's 1.2 kilometres long. Giovinazzi realised there's no point in trying to move around the racetrack and block him, because you would just cost yourself time at that point and speed. So at some point, Leclerc, I think, is going to catch Verstappen in this Grand Prix in a fight over fourth. But at the moment, Hamilton and Bottas. And we've soon got to stop talking about Ferrari this, Ferrari that, Ferrari fastest, Ferrari amazing power, because they're just not delivering it, are they? I mean, they had a chance, of course, in Bahrain.
Yep,
and they had the reliability issues when they really did have the pace there. But, you know, we have to accept it that Mercedes are beginning to dominate this.
It was a 1-2 in Australia. It was a 1-2 in Bahrain. And yes, Leclerc had that software issue that affected his pace. And yes, Sebastian Vettel spun and Ferrari rather threw it away on both accounts there. But a third 1-2 of the season for Mercedes. Well, they couldn't believe they'd had two 1-2s when they left Bahrain. They'll be pinching themselves if they leave China. And they've had a 1-2 here as well, because these are the sort of tracks, Martin, where you're expecting the Ferrari to dominate, given the pace that everyone suggested they had at the end of testing.
All the chairmen and manufacturing bosses are in town. It's the Chinese Motor Show this week. Massive marketplace for them all.
There goes Kimi Räikkönen. I don't know if he's going to the motor show or not, but he's certainly going to get past Romain Grosjean here. Grosjean tries to fight it. Will carry on trying to fight it, but can't fight it any longer. Räikkönen is far enough ahead to take 9th place and cross the finish line. A couple of car lengths ahead. Grosjean's got DRS, though. He's going to fight him back into turn 1. They go. He's got a lot more speed round the outside, Romain Grosjean. The track tightens up. Kimi's got the inside line, and he's got to stick behind that Alfa for that little bit longer.
Yeah, you have to get up early in the morning to go around the outside of Kimi Räikkönen in turn 2. If you want to surprise him like that. But he's certainly having a great race, isn't he, Kimi?
He's enjoying himself, I think. 13th. On the grid, 9th at the moment.
Nice. He talked to us on the grid. He always goes well when he talks to us on the grid.
He even signed the copy of his book that I went and bought at Christmas time for me as well, and then tried to charge me €5. I note you're still signing copies of the scrapbook for free. You see? That's the man you are, Martin Brundle.
Sign anything.
Really?
Apart from a check.
Damn. Should I take care about tyres?
We need to push.
So no, don't think about tyres, Shell. We need you to get a bit of a move on. I wonder if Valtteri Bottas is thinking about tyres a bit, and he's dropping behind Lewis Hamilton now, and has done for the last 3 or 4 laps.
Yeah, he's had a lot of confusing messages, hasn't he, Leclerc, this afternoon? You know, get out of your teammates' way, you're too slow, and get on with it. He's 23 seconds off the lead, though, but his pace at the moment, he's the fastest man on track.
Making up for that deficit handed down to him by swapping places with his teammate and then being second in the queue for a pit stop at Ferrari.
So a very tiny amount of virtual safety cars. So any of these cars that started the race a bit marginal on fuel, you don't want to carry any more fuel than you have to, you might have to think, if there's going to be no safety car here, about fuel saving.
We are thinking about plan B. Plan B.
Ooh, 2-stop, put a set of softs on for the end.
Well, what would the softs be lapping? About another 1.5 seconds quicker than he could go at the moment?
Yeah.
Give him 15 laps maybe to attack?
And a 20-ish second cost to go in the pits. Yeah, all right. Give it full beans then. Take as much life out of these tyres as you can, and you'll be a hero in the closing stages.
Well, we shall see. We've got 19 drivers still running here on lap 31 of the Chinese Grand Prix. Only Nico Hülkenberg out, who didn't reach the checker flag in Bahrain and didn't reach the checker flag here either, with another mechanical issue at that Renault team.
So how long will he... At this rate, he'll be with Verstappen in 6 laps' time. Will they let that squabble take place? And yeah, they've not got a lot to lose with Leclerc at the moment, have they? He's sort of in a 5th place.
Alex Albon on Kevin Magnussen. And Alex Albon winning that battle quite comfortably. That Toro Rosso definitely has pace, and he is up into 11th place. What I would imagine, Martin, is get Leclerc right up to the back of Verstappen, then pit him before the squabble takes place. Anthony Davidson is at Sky Race Control and very happy this afternoon in free practice. He told us all that Ferrari might have pace, but it's downforce that really counts. And it's downforce that Mercedes are winning with at the moment.
Yeah, forget the guys in front at the moment, Prof. It's the race now between Verstappen and Leclerc, with Leclerc catching a second a lap over Verstappen pretty much every single lap. It's now time for Red Bull to focus behind rather than in front, unfortunately, and I think they're going to have to get the undercut done against Leclerc before the inevitable happens. They're racing for track position.
So Red Bull coming in and making a second pit stop themselves before Ferrari have a chance to attack them.
Stroll on Magnussen as well. This is for P12.
That is a Toro Rosso of Danny Kvyat. That's going to need a new nose. So he's obviously picked up a bit of damage as he's banged his way through the field.
Well, he skittled 2 McLarens, didn't he?
Yeah.
Which was why Norris didn't have markings on his right rear tyres earlier on, because I think they were all rubbed off. Soft tyres go on.
And away he goes. He's not exactly having the best of races here, Danny Kvyat, former podium finisher. This was the start of the race. Got a really good getaway, Kvyat, and right in between the two Hasses. In the second phase, the Haas kind of pulls away. Then he gets bogged down just a touch and finds himself behind Giovinazzi and behind Perez as well. But his initial getaway was good. Hear the wheel spin, can't you, as Verstappen goes through the gears.
The drivers have to now do all of the clutch movement themselves. So it's very much a judgment as to when you fully release the clutch. The second phase. Now we've got 3-4 abreast in here. So how did Kvyat end up back there then?
Well, he got away well and just got swallowed up by the field in the second phase, and then overtaken by Perez and Giovinazzi as well, trying to make up for it. Bang, bang, bang.
Yeah, Norris so unlucky there.
Yeah, he was. After his 6th place finish in Bahrain, the harsh realities of a long Formula One season hitting him like a Danny Kvyat mistimed move on the opening lap here. Meanwhile, George Russell, another young British rookie, getting lapped by Charles Leclerc. As it has been in the other races so far this season, the Williams are not on the same lap as the leaders in this race. Ted, to you.
A couple of things from down here in the pits. First of all, Lance Stroll, P12 in the Racing Point at the moment, reporting some rough downshifts. So I was wondering if there's anything wrong with the gearbox. They're chasing it from the garage. And I've solved the why does Lando Norris have a tyre with no markings on conundrum, having just made a pit stop, or made a pit stop 5-10 laps ago. That's because he's had to put the set in which he had the coming together with Kvyat on again.
Oh.
So he started with those mediums, yellow ones, pitted, put a set of hard tyres on, pitted again and put that set of mediums on again. And that's why there isn't a marking on the right rear, is because it was rubbed off in the incident with Kvyat.
Ted,
that solves the mystery.
Not only does it solve the mystery, but Agatha Christie will be doffing her cap to you.
Unfortunately, it doesn't help Lando Norris's race.
No, it doesn't.
He's down in 18th. Yeah. Very disappointing.
It wasn't the butler what done it. It was Danny Kvyat on this occasion. Charles Leclerc trying to unravel this race for himself, and Ferrari trying to help him out as well. And what's the gap between himself and Max Verstappen? It's down to 3.5 seconds now.
Yeah, he's been relentlessly coming at him second a lap, as Anthony pointed out. So, if they...
Who's that fastest lap? So Valtteri currently has fastest lap.
36.558. Lewis's fastest lap so far, a 1 minute 37.1 rather. So the extra World Championship point. I mean, Bottas currently leads the World Championship by 1 point, the extra point he got for fastest lap in Melbourne. The drivers know there's 21 points available through the year. That's better than a second place in total.
Just as Giuseppe Farina, the man who won the first ever World Championship Grand Prix at Silverstone on May the 13th, 1950, got a fastest lap too.
Up again. I would agree it's slightly more variable or more gusty.
Wasn't that windy at Silverstone that day, but he did get a point. Did Farina for taking the fastest lap. He also got the win as well.
When you drive those old cars, the wind seems to come past clean through them, actually. You don't worry so much about the aerodynamics, but they didn't really have any, did they? They probably had lift, if the truth be known. But we're hearing a lot about this year, isn't it? Which direction the wind's blowing in and how. And I think it's these and how strong it is. And the tall rear wings, the engine fins, the length of the car, they've become very susceptible, a bit like a weathercock, haven't they, in terms of crosswinds. The drivers are always talking about it.
What I'm finding interesting here in this race as well, Martin, after a brilliant Bahrain, is the wind speed measuring device.
4 meters per second, that looked like to me, roughly.
I'd say so. Give or take an errant gust around the paddock. But what I'm finding interesting here is that we're not getting cars following as close as we did in Bahrain in the layout of the track.
Leclerc's ahead of Verstappen.
Because Verstappen is now pitting. And Verstappen coming in. So Anthony Davidson saying that Red Bull had to cover off the threat of Ferrari by pulling the undercut themselves. Not only have they pulled an earlier pit stop, but they've done a magnificent 2.3 seconds stationary time as well.
The problem when they do that with Leclerc is that, if they do indeed do that, is that the other Red Bull will come into play, Gasly, although I think on a fresh set of tyres, Leclerc will pass that quite quickly.
And Gasly doing a magnificent job for Red Bull there by being so far behind Max Verstappen. When Verstappen comes into the pits, Gasly's still behind him on the track and covering off any danger behind. And my tongue was, yes, in my cheek at the time.
Box, Sebastian. Box now.
Wow.
Verstappen pitted.
So they'll cover that one off then. So that will start making Mercedes scratch their chin a little bit, because it's a no-brainer really when you think about it, isn't it, for Ferrari to react to that. They don't want to start running out of tyres in the last few laps, only to have Verstappen coming at them, and it guarantees then plan B, as they call it, a two-stopper.
Well, Mercedes, they've got a nice buffer, so they might as well use that to come into the pits as well. No good thinking, well, we're far enough ahead, it's okay, we'll stay out there. We've seen drivers over the years here in Shanghai really regret not taking an opportunity to pit again.
Bang, get it down to just 80 kilometers per hour, 50 miles an hour, which seems so slow when you're in the car, and when you're sitting down there and a car's coming at you at 50 miles an hour, it looks incredibly fast. Yeah, a stop and a half, wasn't it?
Did he actually stop? Was he moving while they were changing the tyres? 2.2 seconds Sebastian Vettel was stationary for, so a tenth better than Max Verstappen, who's now just rounding the final corner. You can see him at the top of your screen as Sebastian Vettel comes out. It's not as close as it was the last time these two pitted, and Verstappen had that lunge down the inside to try and get past Vettel, but he just couldn't make it stick. And Sebastian Vettel staying ahead and comfortably ahead at this moment in time. Oh, onto the dirt a little bit, going wide outside turn 3. Hamilton from Bottas, from Leclerc, from Vettel, from Verstappen. Leclerc, Bottas and Hamilton should be stopping again.
So after the 6 sets of tyres they took into qualifying, Hamilton had one brand new set of soft tyres available, but no mediums, and the rest of the key runners all had a brand new set of mediums.
So box, 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 box. Box, 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 box.
So they'll have to, if they go medium for Lewis, they'll have to put.
Box. So
are they going to stack
Lewis
them?
I think
they're going to stack them.
Right, well, this is putting a bit of pressure onto the pit crew then, who are out and ready and waiting. Grosjean comes into the pits for Haas as well for his second stop.
I wonder why they feel the need to take that risk of a double stack.
Well, they are double stacking, because Bottas is coming into the pits as well, and he's waiting, and they've got this absolutely spot on. Valtteri Bottas didn't have to slow down any more than he was required to with the 80 kilometers an hour speed limit. That was proper perfection. Now, can they get one of these cars out ahead of Charles Leclerc? Yes, they can. That's Lewis Hamilton. Leclerc's going to pit anyway. Bottas comes out ahead of Sebastian Vettel quite comfortably, but that was really well executed by the Mercedes team.
And to answer my own question, they had to cover off a safety car eventuality. So if they suddenly got caught up out the back with a safety car, then Ferrari would have the high ground with the fresh tyres on. So Mercedes reacting and getting it right. So Leclerc then finds himself right back in the action, albeit on new, very used tyres.
Yeah, Valtteri Bottas knows a thing or two about a safety car coming out at the wrong time here in China. Of course, it cost him victory last season. He'd gone past the finish line. Safety car picked him up, and the Red Bull team thought, well, we'll come in for a double stack here. Managed to execute the perfect strategy to go on and take the win with Daniel Ricciardo, who, by the way, is running 7th, best of the rest for Renault at the moment. And this is the double stack stop for the Mercedes team. Medium tyres going on for Lewis Hamilton. Just when one went out, the other one's ready to come back in again. It was like a production line.
And the choreography of that is sensational. Of course, remembering you've got to get the right tyres on each car. If they went and put Bottas's tyres on Hamilton's car, they'd both be disqualified, and vice versa. They'd be disqualified.
That's why you have one, two, maybe 3 guys in the garage who job all weekend long. Tyres, make sure the tyres are in the right order. We know whose is whose. The barcodes and everything sorted out, that's your responsibility. Lewis Hamilton, 25 points will be his if he carries on in the lead here, and he's looking good for it as it stands. Charles Leclerc, 2nd place for Ferrari. He's the only one of the top 5 that hasn't stopped twice in this race. Valtteri Bottas runs 3rd at the moment, ahead of Sebastian Vettel, who's just set a new fastest lap of the race.
Yeah, Vettel absolutely flying down in the 1:34 now. So that extra championship point rests with him, and Bottas is on a very fast first sector. Now they'll pull the pin. Now they're going for it.
They certainly are. It's been close this race, but maybe not as close as the leaderboard at the top of the Masters. Final round of the Masters coming up on Sky Sports later today. It's a great day for golf fans, for sports fans as well. And don't forget, the Masters due to start 5 hours earlier because there's a threat of some pretty nasty weather over at Augusta. So the pre-show gets underway at 1 o'clock with live coverage from 2 o'clock UK time. Ted.
Just peering down the pit lane to see what Ferrari are doing with Charles Leclerc. I don't expect to bring him in now because their whole strategy was to give him the freshest tyres at the end of the race, wasn't it, Crofty? So to extend this middle stint, I'm just wondering if they can't only one stop him. He'll be too vulnerable. He'll be all over the place at the end of the race with tyres.
He's under threat from Valtteri Bottas already. Yeah. Bottas goes around the outside at the hairpin. This might not be the best way to try and do this. He's going to get better traction coming out of the hairpin, but Leclerc manages to stay ahead of him. He planted that Ferrari in just the right place. And can he keep Valtteri Bottas at bay for a little bit longer?
Yeah, Leclerc's in the 137s, though. His teammate's in the 134, so is Bottas now. They'll have to bring Leclerc in, and they need to bring him in soon.
Yeah, but he's doing a very good hold-up job, isn't he, really, for his teammate Sebastian Vettel. Where's he gone? He's still there, out in front of Valtteri Bottas, who have 2 stabs of DRS and couldn't get past it. This is where the Mercedes has been quicker than the Ferrari all weekend long in the middle sector of the track. Bottas wants to go one way, the other way, goes around the outside. Leclerc once again putting that Ferrari in a very good place indeed, but there's only so much defence he can do, and it still hasn't come to an end. I thought Bottas was going to get him out of turn 6. Did something, was that marbles? Bit of rubber coming off the back of the Ferrari there, chunking bits of rubber coming off.
He was offline basically, so I think he was kicking up some marbles.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, Bottas is close enough now to breeze easily past him down the back straight, but Leclerc spent a lap extra holding that Mercedes up that Valtteri Bottas would have liked.
Yeah, and all the time, Vettel's catching the pair of them, so it brings Vettel back into play against Valtteri Bottas.
Now there goes Valtteri Bottas then, started on pole in this race. He's been playing second fiddle to his teammate Lewis Hamilton ever since the start, and he's back ahead of Charles Leclerc, so goes back into 2nd place in this race. The man who started as championship leader will be looking at what he hopes will be a Ferrari disappearing in his wing mirrors, but Sebastian Vettel is getting closer.
Surprised Leclerc didn't pit there.
Yeah. Unless, of course, they leave him out for a little bit longer because he's got DRS at the moment, so he could hustle and harry Valtteri Bottas a little bit. But if they keep him out there, Martin, for another 2 or 3 laps, Sebastian Vettel then gets a bit of DRS assistance to get past his teammate, and that helps him in terms of lap time and getting closer to Bottas himself.
And I guess a better chance of getting some softs on Leclerc's car if he only had a brand new set. But good, exciting.
Absolutely.
Leclerc sort of moved to the right, but there's so much debris on that straight, isn't there? Discarded tyre rubber.
He did a sterling job there, holding the Mercedes up. And I'm sure it's not the role he thought he would be playing at the start of this race. It's a role, though, that he accepted at that moment and did very nicely, looking in his mirrors all the time to see where the Mercedes is. Then he picks up the slipstream and thinks, oh, I'm still fighting him a bit.
Okay, well done, Barteri.
You could hear the extra speed there as he got in the slipstream. Couldn't you? Extraordinary. Yeah, the revs go up, but they might be consigning Leclerc to 5th place if they're not careful. Because he's still in a big fight with Verstappen. Gasly's pitted as well now from 6th place.
So, the order on lap 40 of this Chinese Grand Prix. Lewis Hamilton leading from Valtteri Bottas in 2nd place. 6.3 seconds, the gap between the two Mercedes. Charles Leclerc holds 3rd for the moment, but 1 stop for him, 2 stops for the rest, and 2 stops really does seem to be the way to go for the front runners at least. Leclerc's going to carry on, isn't he, for another lap at least. Sebastian Vettel has got an awful lot closer to him, and he's only 2.5 seconds behind Leclerc now, and he is only, what, some 4 seconds, 4 and a bit seconds behind Valtteri Bottas as well. Max Verstappen running in 5th place and took race control.
Yeah, well, the tables completely turned, guys. It's now Verstappen who's catching Leclerc 2 seconds a lap that last lap. I think he's coming to get him at the end of the race.
Well, let's see. I'll be amazed if they don't pit Leclerc. And if they're going to, they need to do it quite soon, don't they? But otherwise, they're just leaving him absolutely vulnerable, as Anthony says.
2nd race in a row that Max Verstappen's coming to get Charles Leclerc at the end then. It was mechanical issues that were dogging Charles Leclerc in Bahrain.
And Albon is into the World Championship points now, up in 10th. He's got Lance Stroll, though, giving him a good run for his money, fighting over those final few championship points. They've displaced the 2 Haas drivers.
The thing about Albon is he stopped once. Ricciardo, Perez, Raikkonen, Albon and Stroll have all stopped the once, trying to make a one-stop strategy work. That order there might well change in the midfield as well, as the laps tick down towards the checkered flag. He's driven a super race as Alex Albon to get himself into the top 10, despite the likes of Magnussen and Grosjean pitting to allow that Toro Rosso up there. But starting from the pit lane, as you rightly say, in the points, Martin, 15 laps to go now.
So with all the shenanigans, they've now effectively placed Leclerc a full pit stop behind his teammate, but he will get some fresher tyres.
He's not exactly been the quickest Ferrari this weekend anyway, Charles Leclerc. However, he didn't expect to be in this sort of situation. And that is how close Sebastian Vettel is to his teammate. He's almost caught him at the wrong time here, really. He wants to be getting this close when they get to the DRS detection zone, so he gets that extra little bit of DRS, any little helping hand they can get, because as far as Sebastian Vettel's concerned, it's getting towards the Mercedes of Valtteri Bottas that has got to be his target now. And Charles Leclerc is going to have to watch out for Max Verstappen, albeit if we've got 15 laps. If Verstappen carries on at this rate, his tyres aren't going to be that full of life by the time we get to the closing 3 or 4 laps.
An armful of oversteer through turn 11 there for Leclerc. Are they hoping they can keep ahead of Verstappen? They were a dozen seconds clear of Verstappen as they crossed the line last time around.
And I think I have to say, I think that is the plan, maybe to leave him out there. There goes Sebastian Vettel. Makes the move and passed his teammate for a 2nd time with ease, and maybe orchestrated as well. Sebastian Vettel up into 3rd place.
He pits. He does pit.
Right.
So a fresh set of tyres, and it's going to be, I think, a pretty epic duel between Leclerc and Verstappen fighting over 4th.
So they were leaving him out there until Sebastian Vettel could get some DRS behind his teammate to help his lap time and get him past.
That's how it looked.
Oh no, he stopped. Oh, I just thought for a moment he'd stopped and couldn't get it started again.
Yeah, so mediums go on, and he had a brand new set of mediums, which or has he already used those? No, he hasn't used those brand new sets, so they think that's a better bet. than a used set of softs.
Right, so Charles Leclerc is in 5th place. Max Verstappen has gone through in 4th place. Verstappen comes to the hairpin now at turn 6 as Leclerc makes his way through turn 3.
I wonder if that little stutter, that 1 or 2 seconds there, might just be all the difference for Leclerc in terms of his fight. There we go, his fight with Max.
And I wondered, was his eye caught by something? He paused. Did he think that he wasn't ready to go? He had the green.
Yes, he pulled the clutch in again, didn't
yeah.
he? Like.
Danny Kvyat is out of this race, banged into 2 McLarens at the start and had to change his nose as a result of some damage, and Danny Kvyat's quite miserable Chinese Grand Prix comes to an end on lap 43. Right, Nico Rosberg, world champion, former pole sitter and race winner, of course, here in Shanghai, is with us this weekend. Ferrari, Nico, you're going to talk about this a lot after the race, I'm sure. Have they got everything right? Can Leclerc get Max Verstappen by the end?
Well, for Sebastian, more or less, they got it right, yes. But for poor Charles Leclerc, it really... Oh, I feel for him. I feel for him a lot at the moment, and I don't know if it's even realistic for him to get back to Verstappen. It's going to be a long stretch, I think, but let's all hope, because that could give us a really cool end to the race, because those two together will be fun to watch.
You might have to take him for a pep talk and a bottle of sparkling water in a bar in Monaco somewhere when you get back home after this. He's going to need a bit of a pick-me-up, because this is not the way his career's been going. It's a massive disappointment, this race, for him.
Yeah, totally, because he had the pace. I mean, he was on the pace in the race, because Sebastian, when he went by, wasn't any quicker. So yeah, it's really not a nice way for him to end this race today.
Meanwhile, out in front, it's Hamilton ahead of Bottas, and Mercedes are going to be utterly thrilled if this turns into another 1-2.
Vettel still fancies a crack, doesn't he, at Bottas there over 2nd and 3rd. He's pushing very hard indeed. And Leclerc then has got a 14.6 second gap to Verstappen on his fresh medium tyres. So that's, if he's got the fuel, he's got the tyres, and we know he's got the speed. That's going to be potentially very close at the end of the Grand Prix.
It certainly is. Don't go and put the bacon sarnies on just yet if you're watching back in the UK. I know it's Sunday morning breakfast time. This is race 1000. This is looking like Lewis Hamilton's 6th victory in China. Is it going to be, though, Charles Leclerc or Max Verstappen, 4th or 5th? And can the likes of Daniel Ricciardo, Sergio Perez, Kimi Raikkonen, Alex Albon hang on to where they are in this race, given that they've had one less pit stop than others behind them? They're trying to get the maximum from this Chinese Grand Prix the hard way. Ted Kravitz, down to you.
So this is a great fight. Kimi Raikkonen with much younger tyres than Sergio Perez in front of him. Now down to, what is it, 0.9 of a second?
Yeah, something like that.
Just under a second. So let's see if the Alfa Romeo, with, of course, the powerful Ferrari engine, gets past the racing point on the straight.
And just up the road, Ted, is Daniel Ricciardo in the Renault.
Yeah, we haven't said much about him, have we?
He's only just in front of them.
Great job he's doing. We've had a word from Renault, by the way, on Nico Hülkenberg, if you're interested.
Yeah, I definitely am. Hold it for 2 seconds. I think Kimi's a bit too far back. He's not going to do a Max Verstappen late lunge on this occasion, as behind there's the Williams going into that hairpin. Well, the McLaren of Lando Norris and the Williams of Robert Kubica. I just think Lando Norris pulled a move on Robert Kubica there that we saw briefly. I'm just making sure he actually got ahead of him. Ted, back down to you.
Yeah, so Hülkenberg reported a problem with the car, and they need to investigate what exactly it is. They're not saying at the moment, but they had to retire him because of that. Kubica, if you're wondering why he's so far behind his teammate George Russell in the Williams, we haven't spoken too much about them as well, had a problem in his pit stop with the front left. And we have Racing Point making a second stop for one of their drivers, for Lance Stroll. Yeah, Checo doesn't want to give up on that place too easily by making a second stop to Kimi, does he?
Certainly not. I think the time has gone now for Sergio Perez to be making a second stop unless he gets past.
So Leclerc needs more than a second a lap advantage over Verstappen to catch him by the end. We'll see what this lap shapes up as. It's going to be, I think, around a second.
There goes Lando Norris, by the way. That's the move I was talking about on Robert Kubica. Soft tyres for Lando Norris. It's the hard compound for Kubica, who's only stopped once actually in this race.
1.3 seconds Leclerc faster than Verstappen on that lap.
So he's done what you wanted then.
That's the kind of pace he needs now to have a chance on the last lap to snatch 4th place. And I don't think he's going to be a very happy Leclerc.
Certainly not.
At the end of the race.
Max Verstappen's going to have to be defending a little bit here. We've seen him defend quite robustly in the past. Charles Leclerc is going to be coming at him in about 8 laps time, the way this is looking. In the Drivers' Championship, Max Verstappen would be 3rd at the end of this race if he stays where he is. And I know it's early stages in the Drivers' Championship, but I'm sure Verstappen would dearly love to be ahead of Charles Leclerc by the end of this race. In that particular table, Hamilton en route at the moment to be going ahead of his teammate Valtteri Bottas and to lead the championship. The seasons where Hamilton has finished 1st or 2nd in the opening races of the season, he's gone on to win the title. In 2015 and 2017, he's finished in the top 2 in both races so far this season, and helping Charles Leclerc there. A nice big gap in his rear wing, a reduction in drag, an increase in speed to help him on his way.
You have to be really careful when you sweep across the front of another driver like that. You take away the driver's perspective, his visibility of the braking zone. You take air off his front wing and makes it easier for him to snatch the brakes as well. We've seen many an incident that unfolds like that. But Leclerc hasn't even got fastest lap. At the moment, Vettel was a 1:34.836. Leclerc a 1 minute 34.860. So he hasn't even stolen that back off his teammate.
And that extra point that would go with it, of course. So Leclerc was on that last lap 5.5 tenths faster than Max Verstappen. He needs an increase in pace of another half a second to be on the optimum strategy, shall we say, to get past him. On board once again with Kimi Räikkönen, the car in front of him cannot be missed, not even in the dark. It's the pink of the Racing Point. Daniel Ricciardo just ahead of them in the yellow and black Renault. Raikkonen's got DRS as they barrel into turn 1. You can see how Perez is struggling to find the right line. There are 2 or 3 different lines you can take through there. And then Kimi Räikkönen gets all twitchy and nervy going through turn 3. Loses a bit of time as a result as well. One thing I would say, Martin, about Sergio Perez, and I know this track normally limited by the wear on your front left tyre, in this modern age, his ability to caress those rear tyres sometimes has really helped him in this sort of stage of a race, in preserving a bit more grip than others. He's got a brilliant right boot for that.
Yeah, he's a man for the long game, isn't he, Sergio Perez?
And well worth it for Racing Point as well. Sergio Perez, who started this race outside the top 10 in 12th place, currently 8th, and on for a 2nd points finish of the season.
So will Stroll's pit stop bring him, he's got a good chance, I think, of just getting inside the top 10 with that change of tyres. I think he wasn't looking like he was going to take Albon, so they pitted him to give him a chance to come back in the closing stages. Keep an eye on that. Stroll 13th at the moment. Albon holding down 10th with Raikkonen 19 seconds ahead of him.
Sebastian Vettel not lapping faster than Valtteri Bottas at the moment, and he hopes he might have had of getting past Bottas. I think a disappearing 2.
Starts to be under pressure. It's under control at the moment, so pressure for Valtteri may come towards the end of the race.
Why would Lewis Hamilton, Martin, just out of interest, why would Lewis Hamilton be asking whether Valtteri Bottas is under pressure at this moment?
Maybe he fancies slowing down a bit,
yeah,
you know, and just calling it off, as it were. I can only assume that is like, if he's not under pressure, why don't we both just back off a little bit here, because I'm 7 seconds in the lead.
Yeah, kind of. It would help me a little bit if I slow down, just maintain things a bit as Robert Kubica gets lapped once again.
And Lewis will be thinking about 21 races and getting 3 motors through the season. He wants to turn the goodies down, I'd imagine.
That's a very good point. At the moment, Bottas just a 1/10 of a second faster on this particular lap than Hamilton. That might have been down to Hamilton lapping Kubica, as I said, though. He will be going to the top of the Drivers' Championship, will Lewis Hamilton, on 68 points if it stays this way. 1 silver arrow, 2 silver arrows. 1 and 2 for Hamilton and Bottas. Ted, down to you.
Yeah, we should put Alex Albon's P10 at the moment into context. It's brilliant. I mean, let's not forget, you know, big crash, rebuilt chassis, started from the pit lane, hasn't let that affect him at all. Has been just as quick through that last corner as, you know, as if he had he not had that crash. And P10 with a point at the moment, holding it down on a day when his teammate Danny Kvyat, who had a very messy race. And it just underlines also, I think, the pace of this Toro Rosso. Franz Tost clearly believes, well, we know he believes, that this is a really seriously good car. And I think that's underlined by Albon's performance today. Great stuff from Alex Albon.
And Alex Albon having another impressive performance on a racetrack, whilst his teammate Danny Kvyat retiring from this race. That's what, 3 retirements and a podium now in his last 4 Chinese Grand Prix, but retiring from a race where he started 11th and has just got caught up in trouble.
You wonder, I mean, Pierre Gasly, I think, can do a lot better than he is at the moment, but you wonder if Gasly gets under pressure in the parent team at Red Bull, whether it's not Albon, they would think of moving up into Red Bull itself from Toro Rosso.
I find it really unfortunate for Pierre Gasly in that his performances so far this season, Martin, have been such that paddock conversations are going on as to what happens.
Get the fast lap.
Still better than 34.8.
So Hamilton's thinking about it, and he's thinking about the fastest lap. And I'm not suggesting that Pierre Gasly should be under pressure or is under pressure at all, but people are having those conversations, and they're not conversations that are too far-fetched. He needs to find a lot more pace in that Red Bull, and he's just not doing it, although this is only the 3rd race.
Yeah, so Lewis has kind of worked out Leclerc. He's 33 seconds behind me. He's worked out what's going on with Leclerc's day as well. I don't know. What else you'd be asking for? Share prices?
Well, you'd be asking what time the planes are leaving Shanghai this evening. I noticed he's been travelling on scheduled airline transport. The private plane hasn't been in use for a couple of the first races this season. And he got a great welcome as we all stepped off the plane when we came to Shanghai on Wednesday morning, as he calls it, Team LH China. We're out in force.
Leclerc has not got enough time to catch Verstappen now, or pace for that matter, in the remaining laps. So he does look as if he's consigned to 5th place. And I think he'll be pretty frustrated with that. Now Red Bull looking at the podium. Remember, they're 23 seconds off the lead, 11 seconds off the podium. The front runners all lapping now around the same pace as we head into the final stages. I can't imagine there's a sub 1 minute 34.8 in Hamilton's tyres, and it's worth the risk, basically.
And yeah, exactly. And the only way you do that, Martin, would be to put a new set of soft compound tyres on and have a pit stop. But you're not going to do that when you're leading a race.
Put him into 3rd place.
Exactly. Don't chase 1 point when you've got 25 coming your way. Anthony at race control.
Yeah, just looking at this battle he said with Albon in running a good P10. But don't forget that he's only had 1 stop, and the guys behind have had 2, and they're catching him about a second a lap at this stage. So he's going to be looking in his mirrors come the end of the race.
I had a problem with the gears.
Okay, understood. Checking the data.
And that might explain then the lack of pace that Charles Leclerc is displaying. We're expecting him to be catching Verstappen, but he's not. Maybe a little problem with the gears. What the extent of that problem is, we're not quite sure at the moment, costing him in terms of lap time. Now, Anthony was talking about the chase behind Alex Albon, so cracking the whip as his 2 stallions go after the Toro Rosso. Gunther Steiner on the Haas pit wall. Can you do it, Gunther? Can you get that Toro Rosso?
I think he can get to them. I don't know if he can get past him, but we'll see.
Other than that, I would imagine it's been another kind of frustrating afternoon for you, and once again the race pace wasn't what you were hoping for.
correct. Yeah, it wasn't as good. I think it wasn't worse than Bahrain because that was difficult to achieve, but still not a good race pace, you know. So we still need to have some more work to do.
Gunther, thanks ever so much for joining us this weekend. It's been great to have your company. Martin Brundle, you're going to be heading down to Parc Fermé in a few moments' time. You got some questions ready for Lewis Hamilton? Have you asked him about winning a race ever before?
I'll think of something before I get down there, Crofty.
Thanks, mate. It's been great to have you with us.
Everything is okay on the gearbox, everything okay?
And that's not a question, that's a everything's okay. Don't worry, whatever the problem was has been fixed. But the debrief will be quite interesting at Ferrari after this race, and Charles Leclerc wanting to know, well, was it my pace or was it the strategy? What was it that happened that meant that I ended up an awful long way behind my teammate as George Russell and Robert Kubica having their own little fight in the Williams. And sadly for both of those drivers, the scraps that they're involved in this year on the track will be between each other at the moment, not with other cars. That is Grosjean right behind Alexander Albon. Gunther Steiner said, well, we'll catch him. Whether we can pass him is another matter. Ted, down to you.
Lando Norris's hellish, I think we can call it, first Chinese Grand Prix ends in retirement, and it pains me to say it because he's had such a great run at last race in Bahrain. So he's in the pits, he's been wheeled back, and it's probably a smart move. He's had to make 4 pit stops today. Tried all sorts of different tyres, all kinds of tyres in the range.
Yeah.
Bit of a test session really towards the end, all caused by Danny Kvyat, of course, at the start. So not able to show what he could do. So one to forget for Lando.
Joins Danny Kvyat and Nico Hülkenberg as retiring from this race, and Norris making so many pit stops he ought to have a season ticket down in that pit lane. Anthony Davidson alongside me then in the commentary box. Martin's on his way down to talk to the top 3 here: Hamilton, Bottas and Vettel.
Yeah, so I was listening on the team radio while I was at race control, and yeah, there was no messages to Charles Leclerc about the gearbox, any advice for him to what to do. So yeah, a bit of a strange one. You see how the fight has lost out here between Albon and Grosjean, as he had to give up space for getting lapped.
That's why you get rid of these blue flags, you see, and they can have their own fight and nothing else interferes with it.
I'm sure they'll carry on that fight, Crofty. No time at all when Albon has to yield to the car behind.
He has to jump out of the way, but it's at what time will he do it? It's just looking down as Valtteri Bottas laps Kimi Raikkonen. 3 laps to go in this race, 6 seconds, over 6 seconds, Hamilton's advantage. Sebastian Vettel 5 seconds back, there he is, with the fastest lap as well, so picking up 16 points for this race, not just the 15. Then comes Verstappen and Leclerc. Gasly a long way behind Charles Leclerc. And then comes Daniel Ricciardo. Now Ted said having a brilliant race, Daniel Ricciardo. He's had a race all on his own today, really. But he is best of the rest in terms of picking up the maximum points for Renault outside the top 3 teams.
It's poor old Lando Norris watches on, and yeah, a day to forget for him, but a brilliant start in the first couple of races at least, and that's what you need when you're a young driver, to come in and yeah, really showcase your talent. That's what he's done. And today, unfortunate in turn 6, he ran wide off the track, and we'll be looking at after the race as well on the Sky Pad, no doubt.
There is Alexander Albon then ahead of Romain Grosjean. We celebrate F1000 this weekend. As it stands at the moment, the man who won the 900th race in Bahrain is going to go on and win the 1000th race, Lewis Hamilton, and they're going to pit Pierre Gasly. Now, is this Red Bull's attempt to throw a spanner in the fastest lap works when it comes to Sebastian Vettel and Ferrari? Let's get him in, stick him on a set of soft compound tyres. He's got a free pit stop ahead of the Renault of Daniel Ricciardo in 7th place. We might as well give it a go.
It's what Charles Leclerc should have done with Ferrari in Melbourne, isn't it? Correct. So, you know, brand new tyres around this track we've seen before makes such a big difference. This is the fight now in DRS, surely, for Grosjean. Activates that. He's got the straight line speed anyway, but Albon's picked up a toe from the car in front. He had DRS as well.
So, and he locks up a bit, does Alexander Albon, just to keep Grosjean interested. He goes a little bit wide. Grosjean can't fight it for the time being. Grosjean would have caught him. You get the feeling if it wasn't for the Williams in the way, he'll be back maybe for another go on the final lap, or maybe into turn 1 as well. Albon's going to watch in his rear view mirrors here. It was Kubica in the Williams. Grosjean's just a bit too far back, but he's still gaining on him as they head into turn 2.
I'll tell you what, Crofty, I'm impressed anyway with Albon where he is in this race in P10, but I'm even more impressed in the way he's keeping cool with this immense pressure from such an experienced guy behind him like Grosjean.
He deserves points today, does Alexander Albon. Pit lane to points in the Toro Rosso. Will he get them? We don't know.
Fastest lap is 34.8.
It's the soft tyres on Pierre Gasly's Red Bull. Watch out for the final lap. He's going for the fastest lap.
There's a reason why they will use them in qualifying, Crofty. It's the fastest tyre. That's what this is all about.
Absolutely. It's a quali lap for Pierre Gasly at the end of 55 of the 56 racing laps of this Chinese Grand Prix.
And it had so much negativity around it, didn't it, when this new rule came in? Oh, I don't like this 1 point for fastest lap, but it's brilliant. It adds something extra towards the end of the race. And all the drivers talk about it.
Well, let us just see. Nelson Piquet picked up the 500th World Championship event, the Australian Grand Prix in Adelaide in 2014. This man won the 900th Formula One World Championship race. Lewis Hamilton on for the 1000th as well. It's not a Grand Prix because there was the Indy 500. I have to keep reminding myself.
Falling foul of your own stat.
But it just trips off the tongue, and then you think, no, they weren't all Grand Prix because we went to Indy, didn't we, for the 500? We've been to Indy as well for Grand Prix racing too. Lewis Hamilton excelled in the United States of America, excelling here in Shanghai as well, on his way for a 6th win. He got off the line ahead of his teammate. He thoroughly deserves this victory today. He's not put a foot wrong.
Yeah, a world-class performance by Lewis, and got off the start well, but he's eked out that gap all the way through the race. And yeah, looking at the fastest lap coming up here, Gasly's doing a personal best, but he's a couple of tenths shy of Valtteri Bottas that hangs on to it at this moment.
Yeah, just looking at the sector times, can he do it? Pierre Gasly, not quite sure, as he heads down the back straights at the moment. The 1:34.8 by Sebastian Vettel that he's trying to beat. Yeah, don't worry. Bottas has been fast at other stages as well, but no one really has been faster more consistently, more consecutively than Lewis Hamilton, and they've stood up to applaud him in these grandstands once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times in the past. Lewis Hamilton on his way to a 6th Chinese Grand Prix victory. It's pretty much 6 of the best for Lewis Hamilton. Alain Prost waves the checkered flag. A 4-time world champion acknowledges a 5-time world champion winning the Chinese Grand Prix, and it is another 1-2 for Mercedes, the first team to get consecutive 1-2 finishes in the first 3 races of the season since Williams back in 1992. What a start to the season it has been for Mercedes. Sebastian Vettel gets his first podium of the season. Max Verstappen comes home to beat Charles Leclerc. And behind the Ferrari, Alex Albon holding on to that points finish ahead of Romain Grosjean. Alex Albon, 2 points finishes in a row from pit lane to 10th. Didn't he do well? And on the final lap, Pierre Gasly picks up the fastest lap. So snatches a point away from Sebastian Vettel, just to compound what I think will be another miserable afternoon for Ferrari. They came here wanting a win. They go away with a podium and 5th.
I think Mercedes will be happy with their day, of course, but even happier that that single point got removed from Sebastian Vettel's tally.
Well, Red Bull have done Mercedes a favour with that one and helped themselves to an extra point in the process. Gasly comes home for 6th place, so picks up 8 points for that, and an extra 1 for the fastest lap ahead of Daniel Ricciardo. Sergio Perez, points finish for him for the second time this season. Kimi Raikkonen gets points for Alfa, who won the first World Championship race and come home 9th in the 1000th. And there, Alex Albon, a 10th place finish for himself. Gets 17% of the vote and driver of the day as well. I thought you might actually have got a bit more, but out in front, Lewis Hamilton has plenty of support.
He obviously made it hard work for himself today from his mistake going back to FP3. But yeah, it was all about this man today, wasn't it, on screen? Lewis Hamilton, a quality drive.
Get in there, Lewis. Super strong start, super strong pace. Awesome race there, mate. P1-2 as well. So Lewis, that's win number 75. Congratulations there, mate.
Awesome job, guys. What a fantastic result for us today. I'm so proud of everyone. Thank you so much for all the hard, continued work. Let's keep pushing, guys. I really appreciate you.
You're welcome.
simulator driver Anthony Davidson, speaking on behalf of those at Brackley and at Brixworth, where the hard work for the next race in Baku starts now, I would imagine. And I also imagine that after 3 races of the season, Mercedes would not have expected to be leading the Constructors' Championship with 130 points from Ferrari's 73. It has gone perfectly for them. Dr. Zetsche, the man in charge of the motor car company, looks at the 2 most expensive Mercedes-Benz on the planet and thinks, yeah, it might be money well worth spending at this rate.
Exactly. Yeah, he's picked that one well, but he could have picked any of them, really, couldn't he?
Yeah, quite. I mean, seriously, for Mercedes to go back from China with a third 1-2, they weren't talking about that after testing.
They did not expect this at all. Obviously, you know, at the start of the year, they knew to have a fast car, but as Martin said earlier on in commentary, it was all about Ferrari's pace all the time. It's the only thing we could mention after winter testing in Barcelona, but it hasn't materialised.
Whatever Ferrari found in testing, they're not finding enough on the racetrack, and they'll go back to Maranello and start to, I think, get a little bit worried from here on in. They were looking pretty relaxed around the paddock this weekend. There's nothing relaxing about that performance. It looked relaxing from the outside for his performance, though. Lewis Hamilton, a 75th Grand Prix win in his Formula One career. We celebrate 1,000 races. He's had 232 of them. He goes to embrace his mechanics and his crew once again underneath the podium. And don't forget, if he stands on the podium at every single race this season, he will equal Michael Schumacher's record of 155 podiums in Formula One in his career. But he needs one at every single race through the course of this season.
Gives the big boss a hug. And yeah, he enjoyed that one today, didn't he?
As did Martin Brundle, I'm sure.
Congratulations. You've won the 1000th championship event. You won the 900th as well, but you seem to have that race under control from the moment you released the clutch.
But it's not been the most straightforward of weekends, but what a fantastic result for the team. Everyone's worked so hard. Obviously, we came here, we didn't know whereabouts we would lay with where we stand with the Ferraris. They'll be so quick in the last race. But we turned up. Valtteri had been quick all weekend. He did a great job today, and to have a 1-2 together, I think is really special on the 1000th Grand Prix. But the start was really where I was able to make the difference, and after that, it's kind of history.
Your 75th victory, pretty impressive of the team to double stack you for that critical pit stop to cover off any safety car issues.
Yeah, the strategists have been really on point for these first 3 races, so we've got to keep that up. And you can see still it's very, very close between us all. I really have no idea how the next race is gonna turn out, but I'm just super excited. Team LH China have been incredible all weekend, so a big thank you to them, and they've been welcoming from the moment I arrived at the airport to the hotel, morning and night, every single day, and here at the race. So a big thank you to everyone who supported me, and to the family. Love you guys. I'm just so happy, man.
Well done again. Valtteri, second place in the Grand Prix. Not quite enough pace today, but satisfying nonetheless.
Yeah, I think I lost it in the start, honestly. Otherwise, the car was feeling okay, and otherwise the pace was similar. But in the first stint, just in the dirty air, couldn't follow. But shame about the start. I got some wheel spin when I went over the white line, the start-finish line, which is immediately after my box, so I lost it there.
That's how tough Formula One is in 2019, isn't it? One critical moment like that decides the race.
Yeah, it's small details, but it's early days in the season. Things are looking good, but I'm really, really proud for the team. We've done 3 perfect weekends so far, so that's very good.
First time this year you don't lead the World Championship. You're coming back?
Yeah, it's not a nice feeling, so I'm coming back.
Okay, good stuff. Sebastian, tell us how that race was for you.
Well, I'm happy to be on the podium, but tough because we tried to stick with them, but we just couldn't. They were too quick right from the start, and then, obviously I had a bit of a race with Max, which was good fun, but the objective obviously was try and chase them down, but as I said, they were just too quick for us today, so well done to Lewis and Valtteri.
A great moment with Max. You hung him out to dry on the outside on the grass, but that was good racing.
Yeah, I mean, I saw him coming, and the speed delta at the end of the straight is quite big now. So knowing Max as well, I knew that he will try. So I was sort of, predicting that he will try, go down the inside and try to cut back. And it worked. I had a bit of a moment, which I had to open the car a bit, but it was good because I just could get nearly a car length ahead, and then the angle into the last corner for him, I guess, wasn't very sexy. So yeah, that was good fun, but as I said, we would have loved to be a bit faster.
The team eased you past your teammate Charles Leclerc early on. You felt that was the right move?
Yeah, I mean, I felt I could go faster. Then it was a bit difficult for me to find a rhythm. So I had a couple of wobbles where I locked up and lost the advantage I gained. But I think it's fair if you see the whole race that we were just not able to stick with Mercedes. But yeah, I think it's a bit of a shame he couldn't get Max in the end. I was following, there's the tower in the middle of the track, and I was hoping for him to pip Max. I think it was very close, but yeah, as I said, plenty of homework for us. Nevertheless, it's a good result, but not a great result.
You have an appointment on the podium, my friend.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Where Charles Leclerc might have felt he could have been himself at some stage, and that will be talked about long into the Ferrari debrief from this race as well.
Yeah, it's a tricky one, isn't it, with Charles Leclerc? He's trying to make his mark. Listening on the team radio as I was through the race, he wasn't happy, and I think there'll be words in back at Ferrari after this one. But he's got to bide his time. You know, he's young. He's got his time to make his mark, and he did that in Bahrain already. That should have been his race. Got away from him unfairly, and he'll win some races this year, definitely.
Yeah, it wasn't the most thrilling Grand Prix you'll ever see. There were definitely moments in it. We were hoping for a lot more overtaking for F1000. Lewis Hamilton was the man in control, as Martin said, leading and controlling the race from the moment that he dropped the clutch. And you've been saying all weekend long, Ferrari might have the speed in a straight line, but it's downforce that rules, and Mercedes always reckon they get Ferrari in the corners.
Well, that's why Ferrari were faster in Bahrain, because it's a point and squirt circuit, Crofty, isn't it? Not many high-speed corners in Bahrain. Here there are. It's made up a lot of high-speed corners. You need to keep your tyres alive as well, and that's where downforce helps.
Sebastian Vettel having a look at some of the memorabilia in the driver's cool-down room. Jochen Rindt helmets, Alberto Ascari's old helmets up there as well. There's even a trophy in the corner from the 1956 British Grand Prix at Silverstone. Valtteri Bottas already waiting for Hamilton and Vettel to get in there.
It's these kind of days, Crofty, that get you down. If you're someone like Valtteri Bottas.
You start on pole,
yeah,
and
he's
you come
thinking
home second and don't get a chance to ever take the lead.
Exactly, you're thinking, what do I have to do to get on top of this guy and stay on top? Keeps coming back. That's the I guess for Lewis's team, that's the annoying thing about him. Just he never gives up.
It's the World Championship should never be easy. Elsewhere in this race, in what is their 500th Grand Prix under all 5 of their liveries, Racing Point come home to take points. That 8th place finish for Sergio Perez, his best ever finish in Shanghai. And it's worth pointing out that Alex Albon taking a point for Toro Rosso. This was their 250th Grand Prix since their first ever race in Bahrain 2006. It is also another podium here for Ferrari and for Sebastian Vettel. His 112th in Formula One and his first of this season. For Valtteri Bottas, he stands alongside his teammate Lewis Hamilton and on the podium for the 32nd time. And for Lewis Hamilton, a 75th career win and the lead of the Drivers' Championship for the first time this season. Well, he led after lap 15, his 4,000th career lap today, did Lewis Hamilton, and picks up the winner's trophy here. And he and Valtteri Bottas extending their finishing streaks as well. 15 races in a row now that they have both finished. That's the longest active streak on the grid.
Exactly, yeah, they're a force to be reckoned with, and it's going to take Ferrari a bit more to beat them, but I'm sure Ferrari will come out on top. You know, a lot of times this year, they're going to have a fast car on different tracks to go to. It started well for Mercedes, but the fight will carry on.
Marcus Dudley picks up the Constructors' Trophy, the performance engineer. Valtteri Bottas gets the second place trophy. Sebastian Vettel, his first podium of 2019. Well, he's led fewer laps in Shanghai this decade than he did when he won the 2009 race as well, and he never really got close to leading many laps. But it is his 13th consecutive Chinese race finish. It's the longest ever achieved on this track as well. Smiles and celebrations, not for Ferrari and Sebastian Vettel, but for another 1-2. Their third 1-2 in 3 races in 2019. What a hat-trick to start this year off. There's a long way to go, but Mercedes already beating their goals. Victory today, second place as well. They lead the Drivers' and the Constructors' Championship.
Well, the perfect start to the season, really, for Mercedes. You have to say, to be 57 points ahead of Ferrari after 3 races of the new season is probably beyond their wildest dreams. The way that they were worried that Ferrari perhaps had the pace, but they came here and the strength in the fast corners was there for all to see. Scuderia have a lot of work to do in the meantime as we move on in a fortnight's time to Baku. Wasn't a happy hunting ground for Valtteri Bottas in 2018. Will he be able to bounce back from this and defeat to his teammates? As I said, 25th to the 28th of April. In a fortnight's time, we'll be round the streets of Baku. Now, if you want to follow the final round of the Masters, Tiger Woods going out in the last group, and Europeans in contention in the form of Francesco Molinari in Polta, for example. It's on a lot earlier because of the threat of severe weather. We're on air from 1 p.m. on Sky Sports Golf with the live coverage beginning at 2 o'clock.